Brussels, we have Mariska Boer, the president of EuRIC Textiles. So she is very well aware with our topics here, and we are looking forward to hear your thoughts. Before we begin, I would like to ask Mr. Damov to give a very short introduction. Please.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Alex, for starting. Many thanks. I will also address thanks to all of you because you made this effort to be together today. I and we and my colleagues, we anticipate here a very, very interesting debate. Textile waste, and Romania normally makes very fast steps in the last years. We have a DRS, we have a lot of changes. I think textile is another challenge, and here together we'll try to find the way, and we'll try to find solution for that. Is it possible? We'll find today, and I'm very optimistic. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Mr. Damov. Before we dive into two very interesting presentations, and short, I promise you that, I would like to make you aware that around the room there is a small exposition, you call it whatever you like, from our partners, which are Humana, Textiles, Second Text, Fepra, IKEA Romania, Greenpack, Roseco, Andrei Group, Viitor Plus. Everybody's here, Asociația pentru, everybody's here, and they are presenting you their products, their upcycled products, recycled products. You just go around and ask them during our pause what they are presenting to you. It is very important that we start with a very good opinion from Mr. Zoltán Gündisch. Zoltán, you have the floor for the presentation.
Yes. So thank you very much for the introduction. I am very honored to be here and to present on today's Circular Textiles conference. Thank you very much for our guests that they took the time and joined this conference. Thank you again. My role is to make aware that in Romania we have a lot of textiles and we use a lot of textiles, and there is a need to find solutions for this textile waste. ARETEX is an association which was founded 3 years ago, and we have big companies who joined this association. A lot of them having European experience also, so I am very proud that we bring that into the solution in Romania. And yes, because we are talking about how we deal with the waste, I put only one figure, that last year the companies in ARETEX collected in Romania more than 7,000 tons. So this is a starting point I think we can build on for the future. I put the circular textiles image here just to give you a little bit of understanding how this works. And you will not see it entirely, but we have the raw materials which are coming into the system. We have the manufacturing, consumers, of course, in the picture. And then we have very important steps, and we dedicated today's session to talk about them. We will talk about collection, we will talk about reuse, we will talk about recycling. Those are the main steps in a circular textiles economy. What I would like to start, and this is like a little bit of seeing if we are ready mentally to do that. I will ask, is anybody wearing second-hand clothing today? Wow. Thank you very much. This is a good start for our conference, you know? Thank you very much. Why I ask that? Because the circular textiles proposal and economy is about reuse. And of course, everybody is wearing today clothing, and we should think about it. Okay, what will I do with this jacket after I don't like it anymore? Because it will be reusable, but I will not like it anymore. So this is a very important topic that everybody here, even the ones who are not wearing any second-hand clothing, should be aware that we need to do something and think about it for the circular economy to work. So I will not go through the whole presentation, but I only will point out some of them. We start in Romania with a collection rate around 0.5, 0.7 kg per capita, and this is compared to Western Europe, it's like between 6 and 10 probably, so we have a lot of room to grow. We do not have EPR in some of the European countries. There is already EPR there, and we have from 1st of January a European-wide separate textile collection, which is mandatory. And I think this was the main starting point to get everybody here together. And since January, we had a lot of discussions between municipalities, collectors, recyclers, reuse facilities, and so on. And I think it's really important that we had that point, because otherwise we wouldn't be here today. I am very sure about that. Okay, why we talk about reuse? And we should know that reuse is a market which is growing. So that gives us hope, and it's growing in Europe also, not only in Africa or in other parts. So it's growing in Europe. So that's a market where we have place to put more second-hand clothing. So in Europe, not in other places in the world, which is very important because we live here, and bringing goods from here to other continents is not so easy, and it's not so financially viable anymore. On the other side, very important, we have a new generation which is buying second-hand clothes not because they don't have money or they are poor and so on. They buy second-hand clothing because it's fashion. And this adds a lot of market opportunities inside Romania, but also inside the European Union. In Romania, we have a lot of expertise in companies which are doing reuse since very long time. So we are doing some companies since 10 years, 20 years, even 30 years already. And we have a significant second-hand retail sector. So that part, we already have it in the system. It's important that we know that, and we build on that. And on the other side, we should know that Romania is still a big textile producer. So we have facilities, we have volumes, in industrial volumes which are coming out and are exported from Romania, but on the same time, please do not forget that every production has textile waste as also in the process. Okay, 2 words about the textile industry. It's an international business. So we optimize everything which can be optimized, from sorting. Of course, we have sorting facilities where we need manual work in countries which are having the labor which is cheaper. And there is a very important thing which changed. Till 2023, there was a business model in the textile industry which was completely financed from the retail second-hand stores. 100%. And this is changing today, and that's why we need to talk about it a lot, because the reusable part of the collection in the last 10 years came down, I think, at least with 20%. And this is a lot of value which is not anymore in the collection. So this kind of only retail is financing the collection, the sorting, the recycling, because those processes were financed by the retail, is at the end. So we need to think how we keep the circle moving somehow. Key challenges, yes. There are very large and good companies in Romania who already have collection in big cities. We have in Bucharest, we have in Craiova, we have in Cluj, we have in Satu Mare, and so on. A lot of cities already have that, but be aware that the reusable part of what you collect from the street collection is around 25–40%, not more. So you need to see what is happening with the other percentages. One more reality which I would like to point out, because we had a lot of discussions regarding if it is or not containing a textile collection, other items. Yes, it is containing. If you go to a street container, you will find a lot of apparel like shoes, bags, and so on. The population is giving that into the collection. So you cannot say that we are in a sorting facility, you sort only textiles. This is not reality. You will always have other things which they gave in the collection at that point. And one more thing, industrial waste in Romania is not sorted for recycling. It is, at this point, only for incineration, and this we need to change, because otherwise it will go still, it will go, even if we have capacity for recycling, it will go to the incineration. Okay, two more things here. We need to clarify some of the legal framework. In Romania, the collection is a decision which implies a lot of different authorities. We have the municipality, we have the Inter-Community Development Association, if I translated it correctly, we have the companies. And there is a legal battle how to make a contract to collect in Romania. We need to be aware of that, of course. Yes, and one more thing, I talked a little bit before the conference, but for me it's very important that not 100% is reusable and recyclable. And if we start the flow and we collect the 100%, we will have reusing, we will have recycling, and at the end we will have quantity for incineration. And in Romania, we do not have enough quantity. So to be able to put it there, because otherwise this waste, which is not reusable and not recyclable, will stop the whole flow. It will pile up and it will stop it. So that's a very important topic also to talk about it. Okay, we should look, of course, in the future, and the future, I think, is reuse. I had the figures before. Reuse is a market which can take in Europe more volume, and it will take more volume. So we should think about how we enlarge that market. And of course, because the business model is changing, we need to start, and the European Union already has that on its way, to have the EPR Europe-wide. But of course, implementation and today can be 2 years, can be 1 year, can be 3 years, and in that time, the industry is not really having a chance to survive. So the infrastructure, and I'm talking about Germany, it's a good example. In Germany, today, they are collecting, thank you very much, I will finish, they are collecting the beans because they cannot collect that amount anymore because they cannot sell it. So this is a sad situation, and if this infrastructure is destroyed, then it will be harder to put it back again in 2 years, 3 years when the EPR is there. So we need to take care now so that infrastructure is not disappearing. Okay, I think one more message here may be that we need the policies. So we need policies which can bring together the industry and can bring together the goal of sustainability, Green Deal, Circular Economy Act, and so on. Those, if they are put together, we can have, I think, a brighter future in circular textiles. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Zoltán. Before we go to our next presentation with Mrs. Mariska Boer from EuRIC Textiles, that I'm inviting here, I would like to let you know that we have translation available over there. Traducere căștile are nevoie, sunt aici la tehnică dreapta. Mulțumesc. Please, Mariska.
morning, Bucharest. Good morning, everyone. Wonderful to be here. Great venue. Thanks again for the organizers for inviting me. Well, as Alex already introduced me, I am Mariska. I'm president of EuRIC Textiles. And EuRIC is the European Recycling Confederation. Quick glance, it brings together 80 members from 23 different countries. And it also represents a lot of different waste streams. But the most exciting one, the most important one, the reason why we're all here today, textiles. The textiles branch was founded in 2019, and we have currently 25 very active members and partners who are contributing to our main job, and our main job in Brussels is to inform the policymakers, to inform the politicians, and to guide them a bit in making their legislation on textiles. And as we all know, there is really a tsunami, they like to call it sometimes, of legislation that is coming our way. And I hope with my presentation that I can shine a light a little bit on how that European legislation can also potentially help the situation here in Romania. I see a lot of parallels with other European countries, but also quite a lot of differences. So as I said, our main job at EuRIC Textiles is to advocate the interests of the collectors, of the sorters, and of the recyclers. And legislation is much needed because we have a textile waste challenge, problem, depending on how you want to look at it. We heard this just now that in Romania between 0.2 and 0.7 kilos are collected separately. If we look at the European figures for European citizens, we see that 16% of 16 kilos of textiles waste is generated per EU citizen annually, and of that 4.4 on average is collected separately for reuse and recycling. And this very sad number here, the less than 1% is actually recycled going into new clothing. Added to that, the textile sector is the third largest contributor to environmental pressure on water and land use in the EU. So clearly something needs to be done, and we desperately are needing this legislation. I think it was also touched upon by Zoltán that this industry has always thrived on reuse. And I always like to explain that if we talk about reuse and recycling and textiles, it's two completely different industries, two completely different ballgames with sometimes different objectives. Up to now, the reuse industry has been generating simply enough revenue through second-hand to finance all the garments that could not be reused or cannot be reused. To process those garments in a sustainable way is a costly process. Recycling is costing money, simply said. This system is now gotten under a lot of pressure. You see the nice grim picture here, because we are facing challenges in the reuse industry at the moment. This was also mentioned in previous presentations. Since 2023, actually spring 2024, we've seen an enormous increase of pressure on this industry. The reasons of that, or the causes, have not been highlighted yet, but I can probably not tell you any news here. But our main problem is the ultra-fast fashion, and that is hitting our industry from two sides. On the one hand, we see the quality of the collected goods dropping, drastically dropping. So what the sorting operators get inside the sorting plants to process, to sort, is of a lower quality, while their costs remain the same. Even labor costs, they just go up every year, and as it's still very much a manual process, that's also very much an issue. And unfortunately, we cannot do magic in sorting plants. We would like to sometimes, but it's not possible. So if you get bad quality in, you have bad quality out against higher prices. At the same time, these companies, Shein and Temu, I name a few, they're also competing here on the second-hand markets. I'm sure all of you are really aware of that, but also competing on all the global markets, which is, of course, adding extra pressure. Then we also have a regulatory pressure because, well, we have a mandatory separate collection since January 1st of this year. but the infrastructure and the systems, they're completely unprepared. And I was also talking to someone this morning, it's not only a financial problem of competing with the ultra-fast fashion, it's also becoming a physical problem that we are collecting the textiles. Zoltán said it earlier, in Germany is a good example, and we just don't know where to go with the material at the moment. So the industry is really standing at crossroads, and immediate action is needed. We are trying to do our job in Brussels, talking to the policymakers and trying to also convince them of the urgency. They tell us, don't worry, legislation is coming. 2028, 2029, everything will be solved. There will be mandatory recycled content in new textile products. This will put a business model under recycling, and you will be fine. And we are trying to say we do not have the time. The industry is virtually on the verge of collapse, and we do not have 2 or 3 years to wait for measures. So we are asking now for very short-term measures. First of all, to tackle the ultra-fast fashion flooding Europe and flooding the world, basically. But of course, the world they cannot fix. But in Europe, I guess we can do something about, for instance, taking off the exemption of import taxes for packages under 150 euro. That's something that we, in my opinion, is a measure they could take. But also other measures we're trying to push to at least get some relief for the industry. For people who are not in the industry, and I think we do have a few here, so I'm going to explain that also, because the logical reasoning is, hey, if you cannot sell second-hand as much as you could before, and your volume there is dropping, and why don't you recycle? I see a few people smiling. No, we don't recycle, because in recycling, we have, and always had, a market failure. I said before, it's costly to process garments and textiles that are not fit for reuse. But yeah, there's of course a lot of challenges that always have been present in the recycling industry. There's an economic pressure, so the processing of non-reusable textiles into preferably spinnable fibers. Of course, there are a lot of other applications. I know the short fibers, but if we want to achieve true circularity, we have to put them back in new clothing. It's a costly process, it's a complicated process. I always like to call upon the example of the winter coat. If you can imagine how many steps a winter coat needs to go through from being a coat to becoming a spinnable fiber that we can put into a manufacturing process, that we can make a yarn of, it's many, many steps. It's taking apart the layers, taking out the fillings, taking off the buttons, taking off the zippers, looking at the different layers, identifying the different fibers, taking apart those fibers, and then making sure that the fibers that come out are strong enough to be put in a yarn. So it's a very, very costly process. And this all wouldn't be such a big issue if we had a huge demand. If we had yarn spinners, big brands saying, please give us a recycled content. We need it, we want it, we're going to use it. Of course, this is also missing. And this is, I think, yeah, many of us are also aware. I put, it looks a bit funny, but it says low market demand / no market demand, because it's simply not there. I mean, there's a few small brands who like to make a nice marketing story, and they do a very small collection maybe, but nothing on bigger scale is happening. They do not commit to using recycled content, which means that we have limited outlets. We can recycle, yes, technically we can recycle 2 minutes? You're kidding? Boy. Okay, we can recycle everything, but if we have no offsets, why should we? Oh, I'm just getting into the most important part. So, at EuRIC Textiles we have published in March of this year a manifesto. Also a call to action to the policymakers and to the politicians to say something needs to be done. We want to achieve circular textiles by 2030, a full circular textile value chain. Okay, I think that's too ambitious, but to increase, I think, is something we can ask for. Then we have 5 key recommendations, and they're in order of priority, where EuRIC Textiles is at least advocating for, to say, okay, this needs to be done to make these steps. First of all, ambitious eco-design requirements. I believe eco-design and also eco-modulation and EPR systems, they will provide a business model under recycling. I don't believe the industry will move by itself. I think they need to be pushed. And I think there needs to be a mandatory percentage of recycled post-consumer textile content in new products. Fair trade, also very important, looking into end-of-waste criteria. The way we see that, it should not be output orientated, it should be process orientated. In other words, we don't want some consultant or the commission deciding what should be the output of the sorting process before it's end of waste. We think we should let the industry decide in the process and what kind of process is needed to make that end of waste. Then extended producer responsibility. There will be a lot of discussion about that today here. It's not a reality here in Romania yet. I know in the Netherlands, for instance, where I come from, it is, but it's not a silver bullet. It has to be a combination of different legislations, different puzzle pieces that come together. So extended producer responsibility is a transitional tool to move us from a linear value chain to a circular one. But it's transitional and it should be temporary, because in the end, that business model should be created for recycling, and that will also help reuse, it will also help collecting. Then as well as the chemical legislation, ensure we are asking for inclusive governance. We see also in the Netherlands and also in France, PROs that are consisting only of producers and brands. The idea behind it is we pay, we decide. And we're saying, we don't think that's a good idea, because you need the inclusion of the whole industry, of all stakeholders, to actually work together, to collaborate, and to move towards more circularity. Fair EPR fees, so they apply to new garments, but in my opinion also, they should finance the support for textile waste management throughout the EU. So the transportation of textile waste within the EU should be facilitated. We have too many problems with that at the moment. So it should not matter where the textiles are collected and sorted, it should matter how they are treated. And if they are treated in accordance with European-wide quality standards, which we don't have yet, but EuRIC has a wonderful document called the Handling and Sorting Specification, which we think can be a blueprint for European-wide quality standards. If we have those, then theoretically it should not matter where they are processed, it shouldn't be a problem in the transport, and then you have assurance that after this process, it's a product. It's a second-hand product where there's a demand for, where there's a market for, and then we can move on with the reuse. Clear targets, we need reuse and recycling goals by 2029, and eco-modulation to tackle the fast fashion through the fee structure. So talked about it a little bit. Quickly going through eco-design requirements in order of priority. Durability is very important for reuse, so we want durable, strong clothing to be put on the market, not a cheap throwaway fashion that we're getting from the ultra-fast fashion importers. We want it also to be recyclable. We want designers to already consider the recyclability of an item when they are designing, and not only look at look and feel, but also really think of how can this be taken apart, are there any disruptors, limit that. And last but certainly not least, the recycled content. We ask for post-consumer textile to textile recycled content. I know that it's a mouthful, but there's a lot of brands that are saying, hey, we are using recycled content. There's 30% polyester in this blouse. That's great, but it's not coming from textiles, it's coming from PET bottles. And I understand that the industry needs time to transition, but we should focus at this post-consumer textile to textile recycled content, because that will solve the European textile waste problem that we have talked about earlier. Almost finished. Fair trade, end of waste criteria to create a well-functioning EU market. Harmonized sorting, that's the establishment of EU-wide quality standard that is very important. And with that, we will also be able to combat the illegal shipments, so the second-hand, the textile waste that is not sorted, but it's disguised as a second-hand product and is exported outside the EU. I think if we have a strong EU-wide quality standard, this should really be, I'm not saying impossible, but it should be tackled to become less. And that concludes my presentation. It was really, really fast. I was also shocked I only had 15 minutes. So if you want to talk to me during the break times or at any time during today, please feel welcome to. And I wish you all a very nice continuation of the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mariska. Now we come to the part of open discussion. With your permission, Mr. Minister, I will start with you. I guess you've noticed the presentation. These are actually the challenges of the system. I have a question for you. Could you please provide an update for us on how Romania is standing in terms of legislation, where we are, where we want to go, what's our position?
Okay, can I sit?
Please.
Okay. First of all, morning everybody. It's such a pleasure to see so many people in this room, and I'd like to thank the organizers of this event for bringing together so many people with such wonderful ideas and trying to put Romania on the map of the circular economy. We have some good examples so far in the field of the deposit return system and the beverage containers, but especially in the situation where all Europe is at the beginning of this road, I think that this might be easily transposed into an opportunity for Romania and the neighboring countries. And I'm really glad to see that the industry, the social society, everybody is together into this effort. If we talk about legislation, I should be honest enough to say that usually Romania is not doing bad at legislation. So we don't have many problems related to the transposing the European directives. We are always willing to do the things how they should be done. But the truth is that we don't have a problem with the legislation, but we sometimes have problem with the way that we apply the legislation. So if we talk about collecting the municipal waste, if we talk about how much we are able to sort and to send the recycling capacities, and the way we handle the landfills, this is where the problems start in Romania. So we do have a lot of the background and a lot of experience. And I remember clearly the day where in a village in my home county, it was the first time in somebody's lifetime when a garbage truck stopped in the front of his house to take out the garbage. So we're trying to explain to the people that they need to pay for that. It was like free lei per person, which was a lot more than €0.5 per month. But they were so confused because they were in their 70s or in their 80s. So they didn't even know that you need to have a municipal waste service. So this is where we started, and it didn't happen 50 years ago. It happened 20 years ago in the rural part of Romania. And this is where we are now, talking about a good example in Europe for the deposit return system and organizing such events that are really, really consistent and open up a lot of opportunities for Romania, for Romania's people, and not in the last place for Romania's economy. Because it happened so many times. I answered a lot of phone calls from the mayors, and what they were basically saying is that, okay, we have the legislation in place, we complied, we do have now a separate fraction for textiles. What are we going to do with it? Because it builds up a lot of quantities, so we are not sure how to manage it, because it should end in a recycling facility, and everybody is expecting that. But in real life, you realize that things become way more complicated. And it's such a pity when you see that you make a lot of effort to convince the population to collect it separately, and the waste companies, and then it ends up in the landfill. So what I'm hoping is that having meetings like this will not only provide good examples of practices in Europe or good policies, but what I'm hoping is that having the industry on the same table, we will be able to understand exactly what are the next steps that the government is going to do. I think that it's a good opportunity, and it's a level playing field for so many countries. And what I'm hoping is not only to have a better and cleaner environment, but my expectations, even though I'm the Ministry of Environment and not the Ministry of Economy, but my expectations are always related to the jobs we help to be put in place, the investments, the factories, and so on. I have participated not so long ago in an activity that was basically checking the recyclable bin in a village in my home county again, and I have realized that there's so much textile in the recyclable content. Of course, that people didn't truly understand was the difference between a used clothing and some other plastic materials. But I was shocked about the quantity, the percentage. So many clothing, and I try to understand them. Where did all those textiles came from? And I have been told that a lot of villages have a second-hand shop or the town nearby, and they are quite cheap. And sometimes, or most of the times, the second-hand clothing ends up in a waste bin, because sometimes they don't fit, they are not good enough. So I know that there's a lot to be done in the future, and I know that we need a lot of innovation, and I completely understand how big this subject is, and how many problems we will face maybe in the future. But I'm really glad that we can transform it into an opportunity, and having around people who are willing to risk their investment and willing to innovate and willing to understand better what's happening in Asia or in other markets, what are the newest technologies, and how we can use the best available practices to deal with the situation in Romania, and having the environmental national guard on the same table, because we need to talk about the illegal shipment of textiles in Romania. It's not only happening outside Europe, but I'm sure that it's happening in the eastern part of Europe, and we need to address it somehow. But the main message that I'd like to send is that the government and the Ministry of Environment, Waters and Forest will remain good partners of dialogue. And if we'll talk about the EPR scheme for textile importers or producers, or the eco-design, or any other regulation that we need to adopt, we will be there, and we will make sure that, especially regarding to the legislation part of the job, we will do our task. So again, congratulations, Mr. Damov, for bringing together so many wonderful people, and I hope that by the end of the day, we might be able to say that this meeting was really fruitful, and a lot of good ideas were understood from this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I'm glad that you have spoke about EPR schemes, because actually 90% of the people in the room have these questions for you. Do we have a roadmap to have extended producer responsibility schemes in Romania? Because we know we have a national strategy for circular economy with the textile as a chapter. We also have a proposed strategy in Brussels for sustainable textiles. What's our position on that? What is our roadmap, if I can? Yes. What is our roadmap for the EPR schemes?
Oh, sorry. We have floods in the same time in Romania. I forgot to mention that I was really sorry that I don't wear a second-hand tie today. Normally it's happening, and it's a message that I want to send to the people. And related to the EPR scheme, it's clear that it needs to be done. So in the future, and I hope that it will happen very soon, we should talk about the responsibility of the producer and the importers in Romania, because even though I don't buy clothing very often, but we are all part of this fast fashion world. So I believe that such a responsibility should exist. And the close thing that comes into my mind is that we need to assure that the producers are paying for the cost of taking care of their own clothing once the people who bought them disposed. So I'm a true supporter of the EPR schemes, not only in the field of textiles. I believe that in every industry that can be introduced, the producers needs to have the responsibility, because this don't only mean that they need to pay. I think that in the moment you are truly asking yourself, what's the composition of the clothing? Is it easy to be recycled or not? Is it a fast fashion piece or not? And and so on. I think that as it happened in the containers industry and in the beverage containers industry, where they know exactly what's the composition and what's the composition related to recycled material and what's the eco-design of the product. I think the same thing should happen with the textile industry. This is my opinion, and what I'm hoping is that it will remain a policy on a long term of the ministry, no matter who will be in the government or in the minister's office.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. We have taken note of your very fast term that you advanced for us very fast in this year. I'm not sure if it's too fast. And also, thank you for the very good examples from packaging that can be also replicated with textiles. Thank you so much. It is my great pleasure to introduce you our Romanian Vice President of the European Parliament, Mr. Nicu Ștefănuță, who will join us online from Brussels. Can you please put it on the screen? Good morning, Mr. Ștefănuță.
Good morning, bună dimineața.
Bună dimineața. Welcome to our Circular Textile Conference. Thank you for your time. I will get directly to the questions. I believe you heard what was talked before. So we were wondering, given the upcoming EU Circular Economy Action Plan and the focus on sustainable textiles, how do you see recent legislative initiative at the EU level fostering increased reuse and recycling of textiles? And what specific measures are being prioritized to support member states like Romania or Bulgaria in achieving these goals?
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank all the organizers and all the guests, starting with CERC, the Coalition for Circular Economy, ARETEX, EuRIC, the Bulgarian Association, and other people present. I saw there's companies in the room, Humana and others. So I'm very happy that such a discussion takes place. I listened very carefully also to what Zoltán said, Mariska, Minister Fechet. They all brought very valuable elements to the table. As I was listening, I was thinking that I'm so glad that I didn't throw away my 90s clothes because they came back in fashion last year. And I still have them, and finally they're back to be trendy. And I also ran a survey on my Instagram page while we were discussing to see if people would prefer recycled fiber, would prefer secondhand, would prefer only new clothing. And it looks like among my followers, which are a big part of young people, it is very trendy to accept circularity and to reject fast fashion and the overburdening of the planet, as it is happening a lot. So my first point is this. In order to have a functioning circular economy for textiles, you need to create a market. I mean, I talked about this with Mr. Damov and others many times. Unless you have a market that goes from the bottom to the end, you can't really have success in implementing them. I mean, you can have an extended responsibility of producers, you can have many obligations and so on, but unless you really have a market created from upstream to downstream, you won't be successful in doing it. That's my first point. And we really need to make sure that we have the entire market created, which is not yet the point. Of course, the EU has the strategy and the framework directive as regards textiles, and all these are obligations, deadlines, and so on. But knowing Romania's case, we tend to implement a lot of the legal obligations coming from the EU, and then we just say, well, we'll deal with the implementation later. This has been the case with on circular economy on so many levels. You know, the single use of plastic bags, the other obligations as regards the SGR system, etc. They were all put in place, and it's good that they were put in place, but at a number of years after they were supposed to. I'm not discussing this because I realize that it's not an easy thing to do in a country that starts from scratch. But we have to work towards creating markets, because what is urgent is creating an economy, creating a profit, creating players, attracting players to our market. So I'm glad that this legislation exists, and we'll keep pushing for more, of course, but not without the financial support for an incipient, for a starting market. I think it's very, very important, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people in the room look to these kind of instruments, to financialization of circular economy textile markets. So yes, we discouraged fast fashion, ultra fast fashion by the extended responsibility, by the deadline for 2025, etc. But we also have to think about online traders, online players. I'm also putting this conversation in relation to what we have as regards the mass shippers, for instance, Damov, Shein, and others, who produce massively and then they export easily into the Union, therefore hindering our efforts to become more ecological, more mindful of the extent of resource used. I mean, these conversations need to happen in sync, because there's no point in having a European market that is very mindful to resources, while at the same time importing massively very cheap and fast fashion from China. And this is not a statement against China, of course, but we have to take it into consideration that many of the producers who try to establish themselves locally, nationally, they have unfair competition at the moment. So obviously for the consumers, the price is an element that will always be of an important value. And unless we create a market that's fair for our own producers, we won't be able to get there. One word on the resilience plan. So the plan is called in Romanian. The resilience plan is very, very important, because from the resilience plan, you are supposed to create a market, correct? So you have all these aims, 10 fabrici pentru reciclarea deșeurilor, 4 instalații. So all these investments, if they are not done by 2026, we lose resilience money, and then the market will be pushed further down in further other years. Now, we in Brussels, together with my colleagues, with Siegfried Mureșan, with Mr. Negrescu and others in the budget committee and in the regional funds committees, we try to push the deadline for the use of the resilience plans in Romania, because otherwise we won't make it. You know, it's not a secret to anyone. We've had an electoral season that was very detrimental to the implementation of European funds. I would say that the last political year was a nail in the coffin of the Romanian economy, because everything was pushed down, there was no priority, the deficit kept growing, European funds didn't come, national resilience plan was not implemented. So that's why I'm so glad that the electoral process is finally over, because the Romanian economy has suffered a lot throughout it. And not only the economy, but also people, their mental health, etc. So we need to work towards these goals. Obviously, these statistics were mentioned, that we only collect and recycle less than 1 kilogram of textile waste per person, whereas the average is more towards 16. So we're far behind, but we also don't have a system in place. So what do we expect? And finally, when the SGR was implemented, even though it's not perfect, in Romanian Transylvania we say nimic ai bine, so it's better than nothing. It's a step forward. It's important. We show that we can also do a market. You know, Mr. Damov and other players on the market will tell you more about how that market can be further perfected by putting some obligations on bottlers, for instance. Well, I guess the extended responsibility would act similarly, but unless we have an SGR for textile market, we are talking about an incomplete market. So I'll just conclude by saying the fact that whereas our legislation has been aligned to the European legislation and objectives and so on, we still lack an infrastructure. And whereas we lack an infrastructure, and we still lack on the implementation of the resilience plan, we will not have a recycling textile market, because the market is the most important element to have, it's the central element to have in this conversation. I remain your ally. I apologize that I cannot be there. I come from about a month of constant presence for elections, etc., so I also need to do my job in Brussels. But I appreciate all the work done by CERC, by other organizations, and I am your ally in Brussels. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And thank you for representing us. Let me, with your permission, I would like to get to our next speaker, but just a short announcement. Mr. Minister Fechet had to go for an emergency situation regarding the floods in Romania. He's apologizing for that. So I will turn to our General Commissioner of the National Environmental Guard, Mr. Andrei Corlan. I'll ask the questions in English, but he will answer in whatever language, English, Romanian he likes, no problem. So, they've mentioned you many times and your institution. You are an important stakeholder. You know this game, textiles and resources, actually. Our first question would be, what are the key logistical and operational challenges that the National Environmental Guard anticipates in implementing the mandatory separate collection of textiles that actually started in January this year? And how do you plan to address these issues and assure effective compliance?
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. In order that my message will be very well received and be more coherent, I will, with your permission, choose to speak in Romanian in order to point out the key issues in Romania regarding circular economy, waste management, and especially textile waste management, the topic of our discussion today. So, if everybody is ready, I will turn to Romanian. Okay?
Yes.
Bună ziua tuturor! Pentru cei care nu mă cunosc, mă numesc Andrei Corlan, sunt comisar general național de mediu și totodată sunt reprezentantul României în Bordul de Management al Agenției Europene de Protecție a Mediului. Mă bucur foarte mult că abordăm acest subiect, care, în opinia mea, este al doilea, cel mai dezolant efect peisagistic al absenței economiei circulare. Dacă primul peisaj dezolant al absenței economiei circulare reprezintă deșeurile din construcții abandonate pe câmpuri, al doilea pot afirma că reprezintă deșeurile textile în România, așa cum a menționat și domnul ministru Mircea Fechet, ducând o luptă continuă cu deșeurile textile care ajung să fie abandonate pe diverse zone. O luptă constantă pe o duce cu transportul transfrontalier de deșeuri și dacă Garda de Mediu au niște rezultate spectaculoase, ceea ce înseamnă blocarea acestor transporturi, culminând anul trecut cu blocarea 23.000 de tone de deșeuri ilegale însăite în țară, provocarea care a rămas a fost bunurile second-hand, inclusiv haine, care erau de fapt deșeuri mascate. Garda de Mediu a solicitat în repetate rânduri, eu personal în ultimii 3 ani am solicitat modificarea legislației pentru a se reglementa definiția bunurilor second-hand și a se impune standarde de calitate pentru a se încuraja o piață onestă și a descuraja frauda pe care noi o surprindem constant la noi în țară. În absența opririi la graniță a transporturilor, efectele sunt abandonarea deșeurilor pe câmpuri și principiul poluatorul plătește, nu reușim să punem în aplicare, adresându-ne deținătorul administrativ al terenurilor respective și anume primarii din România. Evident că acest succes despre care vorbesc de blocarea 23.000 de tone însăite în țară a fost posibil doar până la nivelul la începutului acestui an, pentru că, odată cu succesul reputat de România din aderarea la spațiul Schengen, instrumentele cu care Garda de Mediu lucrează, și anume instrumentul nostru favorit de a bloca deșeurile însăite în țară, nu mai este valabil constatarea făcându-se deja în interiorul graniței. Trebuie să vă spun că până la ora la care vorbim, Garda de Mediu a făcut 1377 de controale pe rutele de intrare Schengen, respectiv 1861 pe cele non-Schengen. Dorința noastră și strategia comună pe care am elaborat-o împreună cu Ministerul Afacerilor Interne este ca, prin această abordare integrată, să stabilim, așa cum spune legea deșeurilor, să propunerea unor rute generice pentru transportul deșeurilor pe teritoriul României. Evident că un astfel de dezidat este un extrem de ambițios și trebuie foarte bine cântărit și privit nu doar din perspectiva de protecție a mediului, că atunci când vorbim de protecția mediului, vorbim de cele mai bune tehnici disponibile, care înseamnă o sinergie între mediu, economie, transport, social, cultural, finanțe și așa mai departe. Dar, pentru că subiectul este economia circulară și pentru că subiectul se referă la textile, evident, economia circulară este tradusă în sinonimitate prin prevenție și sustenabilitate. În ierarhia deșeurilor vorbim de prevenirea de deșeuri, care o asigurăm prin producerea unor bunuri din materiale sustenabile, astfel încât să aibă o durată de viață mare, sau din produs cu un grad mare de reutilizare, sau din produse care pot fi esențiale reciclate, azi ușor reciclate, astfel că se poate asigura o trasabilitate facilă. Noi tocmai am finalizat și este important să spun lucrul ăsta pentru că România se află într-o situație interesantă și cu asta face parte mai utilă discuția noastră de azi, pentru că, după cum știm, de la 1 ianuarie 2025 avem obligativitatea colectării separate și a textilelor. Și Garda de Mediu a finalizat anul trecut unul dintre cele mai alte controale la nivelul României de verificare a modului de implementare Planului Național de Gestionare a Deșeurilor. Au fost verificate 3220 de unități administrativ-teritoriale, respectiv ADI-uri. Au fost aplicate sancțiuni de 15,5 milioane de lei, dar nu asta este important. Pentru că abordarea acestor controale, cel puțin prin de a fost una diferită. Dacă până acum Garda de Mediu se deplasa în control, constata, sancționa, făcea setăpână și așa mai departe, acum abordarea a fost total diferită. Și anume identificarea problemelor, identificarea cauzelor care au dus la efectele pe care noi le constatăm și elaborarea de propuneri pentru a se corecta vulnerabilitățile legislative care sunt speculate. Și ca o concluzie, după 2 ani de a controla România în felul acesta, concluzia pe urmează să le facem publice săptămâna viitoare, pot afirma că, din păcate, suntem în anul 2025, vorbim zilnic de protecția mediului și încă, la nivel local, există o capacitate redusă de a înțelege beneficiile practice a ceea ce s-a respectat legislației de mediu. Din păcate, încă, legislația de mediu este privită ca o obligație care trebuie bifată și mai puțin analizată ca o oportunitate practică, atât de a îmbunătăți calitatea vieții, cât și de a accesa domenii economice suplimentare, în condițiile în care am aderat la Green Deal încă din 2019 și Green Deal vorbește despre transpunerea principiilor economice pe segmente noi, în esență. Și acum ne aflăm în perioada în care, peste 2 săptămâni, Garda Națională de Mediu va declanșa o nouă sesiune de control național, exact pe același principii, ca să au o recurență anuală. Și noi știm că avem această obligație legală de colectare separată, dar mai știm că după colectare, soluțiile sunt limitate la nivel național. Știm că reciclarea textilului este mai complicată din cauza multitudinii de materiale care intră într-un tricou, să spunem. O soluție ar fi reciclarea chimică, care este extrem de costisitoare și nu este la noi în țară. Și în momentul de față avem soluții limitate, așa cum am spus, cu incinerarea în vederea valorificării la instalațiile de ciment, care au devenit un fel de meca și medina al deșeurilor de România, respectiv, așa zici, producători de la vete, cei care noi facem dosare penale, care eșuează procesul lor de reciclare în aceste abandonări pe câmpuri din țară. Și acum, urmează să mergem în control, așa cum am spus, urmează să sancționăm primăriile, probabil, pentru absența colectării semioticelor ținte pe textile, pentru că din informațiile acumulate, atât de la comisarii mei și din țară, și de la primari care m-au sunat personal, să-mi spună ce fac ei după ce se colectează aceste deșeuri textile. Sau, mai rău decât atât, care este amenda dacă nu colectează separat deșeurile textile? Calculă-o ca pe o cheltuială a bugetului propriu în decursul acestui an, ceea ce, evident, este o poziționare destul de tristă. Am mai spus-o și la întâlnirile noastre anterioare și am repetat-o. Coerciția reprezintă jumătate din drumul parcurs. Pedeapsa reprezintă descurajare. Dar în absența unui corespondent stimulativ, și asta înseamnă crearea unui calcul legal care să faciliteze dezvoltarea unei piețe de desfacere pentru materiale sau bune rezultate din reciclarea deșeurilor, evident că ne vom învârti în jurul acelorași subiecte. Dacă național de mediu privilegiată, dacă mai multă lume să dăm amende, în continuare voi veni cu niște cifre impresionante, dar eficiența costă în soluții majore, soluții pe termen lung. Tocmai de aceea consider că această întâlnire este extrem de binevenită în contextul în care legea deșeurilor textile se află în lucru, în condițiile în care domnul președinte Damov și îl felicit pentru acest lucru, a adunat sub același acoperiș actori din toate domeniile publice, private, astfel încât soluțiile care se vor gândi să aibă aplicabilitate practică, să se stimuleze piețe de desfacere, domenii de business care să ducă la un profit, astfel încât să fie stimulată investiția în tehnologii de reciclare și nu pseudo-reciclare, și astfel încât și OAT-urile din țară să aibă o soluție, astfel încât atunci când vin în fața dumneavoastră, vreau să povestesc de amenziile de mediu peste 400 de milioane în ultimii ani, așa, dar aș vrea să vreau situația să nu mai pot vorbi despre ele. În final închei. Bine, am spune că vă stau la dispoziție pentru dezbaterea și la o fibrei voi vorbi în engleză. Nu i-am pregătit și simțeam că mesajul meu nu va avea aceeași greutate dacă voi pronunța în limba engleză. Dar este un moment de maximă responsabilitate. Este un moment în care se poate fundamenta în cadrul legal viitor și trebuie făcut cât mai repede, pentru că toate aceste sume pe care am spus aplicate în sancțiuni de peste bani publici, există o povară în plus pentru țară. Astăzi se pot pune fundamentele unui cadru legal bazat pe experiența practică a persoanelor din această sală, astfel că rezultatul să fie eficient și să fie ușor de înțeles, ușor de aplicat, astfel încât să fie cu adevărat util. Vă mulțumesc!
Mulțumesc, domnule comisar general, pentru disponibilitate și pentru ideile bune împărtășite. Mă bucur că ați oferit exemple practice din activitatea gărzii de mediu. Cu permisiunea dumneavoastră, o să trecem la următorul nostru invitat. We'll switch to our next guest. Our next guest has double quality here. It's Mr. Constantin Damov, who is the president of Circular Economic Coalition, but also the president of one of the biggest recycling groups in Europe. And he is well aware of the material streams and the recycling technologies, and also he can answer to all of your questions. But our questions today for him is also on the legislative side. We have EU developments and we have Romanian developments. What are the levels that are specifically need to be targeted in order to support circularity in textiles? What further policy measures do you believe are necessary to accelerate the transition to circularity in textiles? And I'm talking about our Eastern European countries, Romania, Bulgaria.
First of all, I would like to thank you for calling me like a guest. And this is making my mission easier. Well, first purposeful, I think, to create. Why are we here? And what is the scope? I mean, we can debate, we'll debate a lot of issues. I think we need a scope. And the scope of today, talking with so many people around, is to create at least at the level of Romania or Bulgaria, which is present here in a big number, to create a national working group. That's why we have here also our minister. We could have, and I hope next time we can have also Minister of Economy and other people that they should be involved. This working group should be more like a think tank on textile, because textile and circularity, they are at the very beginning. Even circularity in its reuse part, it's applied for a long time for the garments. Now, looking at the textile, it's not only garments, it's industrial, as was mentioned here, commercial, unsold stocks, but also we see furniture, we see the carpets, we see curtains, we see trollers, we see all these bags are all made with a textile material. It's a vast domain, and sectorial. There are a lot of activities, not only in Europe but also worldwide. And this is where we find a positive value. The big target for us is how we can make circularity with a negative value. And where is a market? Because if there is not a market, any waste stays as a waste. Even you intervene, you make, I don't know, you make a fiber, you make granules. After that transformation, if you don't have a market, the so-called recycled product is still remaining as a waste. It's a different, was changed the form, but is not a raw material. So we need really to focus on that. As I say, we want a big working group, and we will address this to authorities in Romania here, and I think we have the consent of all representatives here. And also we need to work a lot on the market. Romania started, like every other European state member, with collection. It's mandatory. But you collect fruits if you're going to eat it. So today we are collecting fruits which we don't know if we can eat. I mean, it can be a waste of energy. Not waste of energy. So what we are doing today is to try to see what is the next step. And normally in the waste streams, it's sorting. Where are the sorting capacities? How much should be those capacities, where to be located, how to be integrated? The Minister of Environment, when you say textile and you address to authority, everybody is looking to the post-consumed garments. So what we are throwing and what is in the hand of the municipalities. Because I will say, EPR scheme or PRO, they are always taking the responsibility with a cost. Mr. Kotochnik was saying some time ago, without the EPR scheme, we are seeing socializing the costs and privatizing the profits. Municipalities are always spending money for flows they don't understand. That's why it's necessary by law to be an intervention of producer which they can really finance collection and cut the negative value and create a commodity from that waste. In Romania, I think Romania has a chance. It's not necessary to wait. I think a good example we had recently, DRS, Deposit Reimbursing System, it's our glory of last year. Here, collecting bottle, so we did it before France or before Italy. So you don't have to wait to receive, to be just a market tracker, you can be a market maker. Which means we can be, we can advance, and we can make national law until European Commission will come with a legislation. We can have ambition, which is we can set by ourselves, targets we can set by ourselves, and mechanisms that we can set by ourselves. So this will be assuming a position of a front runner. So let's hope with these people here, if we can push Romania to be a front runner.
Thank you for the insights, but in order to envision this collaboration between, you see there are several associations and companies here, authorities. How can we actually do it? Okay, I understand, we're talking about a working group, but what's the structure, what's the logical steps, what is the roadmap for that?
As I said, we have to fix, if we are talking about, not about implementation or what is already mentioned, what is mandatory. So what is next? How we will go? There are two directions. In secondary legislation, like legislation of how you transit Romania, how you import in Romania from outside the EU, and these things. So here Mr. Corlan can have a very clear situation. The criteria for end of waste, which can be, normally it's a national standard, but we have to be inspired by other countries, which they have it, and this should be done very fast. And of course, to speak a lot with municipalities and with the industries in parallel, to understand, to map what are the quantities, how they are collecting, what can be improved there. So it's a lot of subject we can do, and it's an open invitation for all people in this room to come and participate. I think already this group in our association, in a coalition, which is an open stage, not necessary to be only the members, but even from outside, if they can bring additional input, you are welcome. So it will be a lot of work in this open working group to find solution and the decision of the government in Romania to improve collection, sorting, recycling, reusing. So if we can improve our legislation in this direction, I think we have a direction.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I would like to emphasize that inside Circular Economy Coalition we have this textiles working group. Basically all the companies and experts, members of Circular Economy Coalition are in this group. We have been under the coordination of the Ministry of Economy, because that's the national strategy for circular economy, and we have been closely working with them. So sorry they couldn't join us today. But we would extend the invitation to everybody in the room to come and join us in the working group, please.
Let me add, thank you very much, Mariska, for your presence here. I think we have to coordinate also European.
Yes.
So EuRIC, it was proven to be a very close partner in this subject. So we will also coordinate all our debate, conclusion or proposition also with EuRIC to see that are we also European valid to get some validation and to exchange information. Sometime maybe we are thinking to introduce a practice which is already existing. So probably we can find this by exchanging our thoughts with the thoughts of other member states, and we have to be very well connected to what is new, what is happening around, because a lot of things are happening. Even today when we are talking, I'm sure somewhere in Netherlands, somewhere in Sweden, somewhere in Greece, people, they are talking about textile waste.
Thank you so much, and please allow me finally to give the floor to the ladies also. I will start with the lady who haven't been spoken yet. Sima Jeleva, she's the executive director of the Bulgarian Association for Circular Textiles, our partner here, and also the sustainability person behind Textile Bulgaria. Sigma, what's the current situation in Bulgaria? What are the barriers specifically for your country that are hindering the growth of textile reuse and recycling initiatives?
I'm glad to be part of this conference because I think that we have quite same issues in Bulgaria and Romania, and we are also in the same level of having capacities, but for what we use it, I can elaborate on that. I do not want to repeat the previous speakers. Of course, we also face the same issues as the sector in Europe at all, and we see the same problems. But I will emphasize this. We see these low collection rate figures for Romania, and they are quite same in Bulgaria compared to Western Europe. And why is this? It's just because of the numbers, because of the economics, because the value of the material collected in Romania, in Bulgaria as well, is quite low, and the current capacities, because I think in Bulgaria and Romania we have some capacities for sorting, we have expertise in that field, which is quite important. Because if we want to get some value from this material, we need expertise in sorting. But at the moment we are using these capacities to sort Western Europe material, just because this is the business case at the moment, although it's already not even this a business, but it was since recently. So we can use these capacities, we can use this expertise for sure to create more capacities in the region and to take some value from this material. But at the end of the day, the separate collection in these countries without financing, it's mission impossible, I can say it. We have some pilot systems both in Bulgaria and Romania, and now we are wondering if we continue at all, if they are not financed somehow. Long term, for sure, it should be through the EPR. But in Bulgaria, we start terminating some contracts with municipalities because we cannot afford continuing the system just on a voluntary basis. And regarding also the reuse sector in the region, because Eastern Europe, it used to be established reuse market compared to Western Europe, where they are trying to put specific targets to develop the market and so on. We used to be a market for reuse, but this market is now suffering a lot. We faced it firsthand as our members of BACT with the second-hand retail in Bulgaria, this competition with the Chinese cheap clothing, because, okay, second-hand clothing was considered as affordable clothing, but now we have cheaper solution, and it is the Chinese new clothing, and you can even get it to your home without paying any transport costs. So we are not able to compete with this, and we think that some measures to control this trade should be taken also fastly if we want to keep this business in Eastern Europe.
Making bankable this industrial sector? Is it possible?
If we want to separate collection in this region, we need the EPR or even meanwhile another kind of financing of the system. And we should take measures to promote the reuse, not to put any barriers. And I truly support the working groups because I can give you the example from Bulgaria, what happened with the EPR legislation there. The ministry put on a public consultation, I think it was 3 years ago, the legislation for EPR, but it was just drafted from them without any prior consultation with the main stakeholders and the people with experience from the sector. And then they received so many statements that they didn't proceed with this legislation. So I think creating a working groups is quite important. And also about the topic of what is waste, what is second-hand clothing, I even suggest this working group to be in a sorting center to see what is waste, what is second-hand clothing. And it can be in Romania or in Bulgaria. Varna is somehow the hub of sorting in Bulgaria. 3 hours from here.
So it's really fast. Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for pointing out the EPR status in Bulgaria, because we are going to have in a few minutes a very interesting presentation of EPR schemes in Hungary. And before that, I would like to ask Mariska, what are the key challenges and opportunities you foresee in aligning national policies with EU directives to advance sustainable textile reuse and recycling across Europe altogether?
And how long do I have now? Now, I think I see a couple of key challenges here. I think, first of all, for Romania, but also for Bulgaria, I think there's a bit of a problem with the order of events. And that I mean the events in terms of the legislation coming out of Brussels, because you are obliged to separately collect textiles. These textiles are of a lower quality because this region is already a very big reuse market, so you can safely assume that the textiles that are discarded here have already been reused, so they are of lower quality. And you don't have the EPR, you have no one financing that system. So that is very difficult. On top, you don't have any national legislation. I think that's also lacking. If I take the example of the Netherlands, they actually implemented a national EPR legislation, I think a week before the European Commission announced that they would come with a framework for EPR. And this really helps, because in the Netherlands they have targets for reuse and for recycling. They do not have for collection, but that automatically sort of boils down to the collection. And that helps the industry also to come together, to sit together to say, okay, what can we do? Because working group, fantastic idea, but I would really recommend the producers, the brands, to sit at that table. Because in the end, we need to talk to them. I mean, if you say the quality of the, or I say the quality of the textiles that land in the bins separately collected here in Romania are maybe of too low quality even to be sold as second-hand, so they need to be recycled. So we need to have the producers on board that say, hey, we are willing to take your recycled fibers, which could, my microphone's really bugging me, sorry, which could also incentivize, of course, investments. I mean, in the end, all textiles come to end of life, and reuse, although it's extremely important and it's the basic financing of the whole system, it is still a linear system. It's not circular. You know, it's contributing to circularity, but it's not circular. So in the end, you need the circularity, so you need the uptake of recycled fibers, or recycled replacing virgin in the manufacturing process to become truly circular. And for that, we really need the dialogue with the designers, with the producers, with the yard spinners, etc. And that is what I can really recommend, because I also see that in the Netherlands there's a lot of reluctance there, but we have legislation, they have targets that they have to meet, the producers' brands, so they need to move. And yeah, I said it also in my presentation, I don't think we can wait for Europe. So I would encourage the national authorities in Bulgaria and also here in Romania to take steps towards it, and by all means do it in a working group where you have the involvement of all stakeholders in the industry, so you understand what is needed, what is possible, and what is not.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Do you believe that it is possible to push forward, starting from Romania and Bulgaria?
We have to believe in any case
We have to believe
that it's possible to move forward. I mean, yes, we do realize that the industry is under a lot of pressure, a lot of difficulty, but there's always a way forward. And it's interesting because, as I said, I think also many reused textiles actually come to end of life here in Romania and Bulgaria. So technically, you would also have a great opportunity here, right? I mean, to build up recycling capacity. And you even have a manufacturing industry here in Romania. I know for a fact that Inditex, for instance, is active here producing garments. I mean, that's really close to each other. So if we really look at the opportunities there, but again, I mean, the money does need to come into the system, and it's not coming from our industry. So it will need to come from either, state aid or the producers via PRO, but they will need to be pushed by legislation.
Totally agree with you, and I was wondering what is Mr. Zoltán Gündisch thinking about this. because you know very well the infrastructure in Romania, you know the legislation, you know the key players, you know also the cross-border collaboration. How can we develop more sustainable practice in this sector? It's a broader question because you have a very specific presentation.
Thank you very much. I was wondering, but I would like first to point out that Mr. Damov was telling us about the fruit, and we should collect it, yes or no, if we eat it somehow. And I remember discussions which were done between collecting sorting centers with the municipalities, and we were arguing a lot about what should we put on the street containers today. And I'm a very practical guy, and I would like to point out that today we can increase the separate collection of textiles from the 5, maybe 10% which we have today to 15-20 by focusing with the message to the population that you should put there reusable textiles. And we should not argue with each other that we put on the container, put there anything which is textiles. Because if we do that today, we end up storing that and not doing anything, not even the 5 or 10% or 20% increase which we could do today. So this is very important that we put our realities together, and an increase from 5 to 10 is better than staying at 5 and arguing 1 more year, 2 more years, and so on, because those figures can be increased. Sirma said at some point that there is available sorting capacity. We should be aware of that. So this is not an issue. The issue is to send to those sorting capacities quality which can be reused. And if we do that, and I think this is a very important communication part of it, yes, we can start collecting in Romania today, and we should not wait 1 more year, 2 more years till we have the EPR system and everything set up. So the focus on the practical things and the reality, I think, is very important, and we should do it together. So I think that's
representing as Landbelt Group, we are actually organizing producer responsibility organizations and various schemes across various waste streams. Mainly wheat, batteries, and packaging schemes is in focus of the group. But together with my colleague Sergei Yurcha, who's sitting over there, we are establishing PROs across Europe, actually, and other geographies, as this is a new frontier within our organization. And and also with the upcoming legislation, we are now seeing lots of tailwinds in comparison to 11 years ago when I was here in order to create solutions for our precious textiles. But I'm not going to go deep into all the legislative challenges that we're facing as an industry. And when I'm talking about the industry, I'm talking about producers, fashion companies, as well as all the stakeholders in between the value chain all the way to the stakeholders at the reverse supply chain of things, so the collectors, sorters, and recyclers. And we are all confronted with new legislation. I've never been to a jungle, but that's how I picture a jungle. And when we talk to fashion companies, there's a lot of insecurity, there's a lot of confusion as to when they have to apply what in order to be compliant with legislation, and also as to how they need to change their business models. How do they need to change their products as we go forward in order to be compliant with legislations? So as a PRO and as an organization, even though we are focusing very much on the Waste Framework Directive at present, being a PRO, we are also deep diving into the ESPR and the effects of the ESPR. We're also, of course, looking at the transport regulations with regards to waste shipment, because all in all, as an industry, we need to learn how this new transformation, or this transformation towards the circular economy, will work out, also economically for us. So yes, there is a lot of confusion at the moment. There's a lot of dialogue needed in order to somewhat put this puzzle back together. And when we're talking about the Waste Framework Directive, and especially EPR, which I'm going to talk about in a second as well, of course, it's super hard to generate one message that will fit all the various markets within Europe, right? And we know that the Waste Framework Directive, and especially the EPR legislation, will be, or is already, rather heterogeneous when it comes to local requirements and meeting local requirements. And I think Sirma already mentioned it earlier, that when we're talking about the Romanian market, of course the emphasis with regards to supporting the end-of-use industry will focus much more on the sorting for recycling aspects and the feedstocks and the values that are bound in that value stream. Because if we're looking at the infrastructure that we're facing today, we hardly see any sorting for recycling solidly being in practice or being actually scaled up across the value chain. And for that, we see lots of non-economic barriers. I've been mentioning the ESPR, so basically the product design is not coping, the solution is not in line with the solutions that we have at a recycling level. The heterogeneous mix of fibers that we need to deal with, and the quality loss within a recycling process does not really match the standards that the legislators in Europe are demanding from us. But also there are certain economic barriers, and these are, of course, the high transactions costs. Recycling is more expensive than virgin materials in a lot of cases, and in general, to facilitate or to install new recycling solutions is high capex that needs to be addressed. But talking about extended producer responsibility, and of course there's high hopes for EPR to somewhat save this industry or somewhat transform this industry to meet the new standards within Europe. And at the core of everything, I think, is we do also understand that EPR should be a support in order to cope for market failure. However, if we're looking at this market at the moment, we're dealing with an industry, the collectors, the sorters, and also to a certain extent the recyclers, who have been a self-financing waste stream in a lot of Western European countries for many decades. And all of a sudden, legislation is introduced, market conditions are changing, and all at once, we're seeing our infrastructure being at jeopardy. So yes, EPR needs to be implemented as fast as possible, and it also needs to address the market requirements in the domestic markets within the EU 27 member countries. But we also need to consider a certain amount of harmonization. Why? Because while we're talking about the challenges that are being met in a local market, we're also dealing with an upcoming industry. And the recycling industry, when we're talking about fiber-to-fiber recycling, is an industry that depends on volumes. And volumes are not generated in Romania or Bulgaria or the Netherlands. Volumes are generated in the European domestic market. And when we look at the new chemical recycling investments that have been publicized in the past 3 weeks, we're reading about high-end chemical recycling facilities that want to process 70,000 tons of polyester-rich materials. And for that we need to generate and also organize that new waste stream. So why is EPR in focus? Of course, we can provide transparency, we can facilitate dialogue, and we can also trigger investments in a market with EPR legislation, because it does trigger investors to invest into upcoming solutions. But we also have to, in a way, watch out for different interpretations and expectations when it comes to EPR, because I think it was mentioned, EPR is a good support, especially when it comes to the transformation towards meeting or entering up in a circular economy, but it is only a tool or one tool out of a toolbox that can be applied in order to reach the targets. And before I continue talking for too long, I just want to mention that we are already in a race or in a timeline towards implementing EPR in all the European countries. Unfortunately, we expected the bill to be signed off in July, but that's now taking place in October. And starting from October, we have all member states will have 12 months to write up the legislation, and then an additional 18 months to implement EPR in all the member states. And I guess that is the timeline that we need to consider. Maybe some markets will be faster, and I hope Romania is amongst them. But that's in general the timeline that we need to consider when it comes to innovating our industry and seeking for new investments for this waste, especially for the sorting for recycling and recycling infrastructure in Europe. And with that, I would like to end for the moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. And please join us from the panel. Marius. Yeah. So Paul is the guy. If you want an EPR scheme, he's the guy to talk to. So you know the first two speakers. I would like to introduce to you. This is Diana Miculaș. She's department manager at Second
Part involved in this in the system. So again, if we do something just to be done, it's one side, or if we do something just according to all of us, to all of the needs that we have, that can be a very good solution.
Thank you so much. We have a few minutes until lunch. I would like to take some before lunch. Let's have some questions from the speakers, because in my opinion, you're not going to see them very often in Romania. Some of them are really hard to catch. So, do we have any questions? Because I have many questions, but they're only my questions. Okay? Please. We have a question here. Michael will be with you immediately.
I have a question actually regarding reuse and recycling targets. And it just popped into my mind because we talked about that we have a need for harmonization if we want to have an impactful, effective EPR system in Europe. Should we also strive to harmonize reuse and recycling targets? Would that make sense, or would that not be fair? And should we have different reuse and recycling targets per member state, depending on the state of the industry in that member state? And the next question is, who's going to set them? But I'd say the Commission. But Paul, maybe the question to you, do you have an idea about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it truly depends on the capabilities that we have with regards to an infrastructure in the market. I think it's pretty obvious, and it was mentioned a couple of times, that in Romania, where we tend to find more volumes of non-rewearables, it makes more sense to support the uprise of recycling solutions. But also to the first part of your question, even the landscape of solution providers within the reverse supply chain is so different, right? Not every sorter actually can sort for recycling. Yeah, and I think this is also something that we need to respect. I mean, especially all the non-for-profit organizations who have been rising a sorting scheme solidly aiming at the reusable items, right? We can confront them somewhat or force them to change into a sorting for recycling model. So I think that the handling of EPR fees and the support that comes with it should be, and in order also not to waste money. I mean, how many times, there's so many cases where the money is paid out, but the targets have never been met, right? So my ambition is truly to support all the stakeholders in a way where they truly need it in order to then reach the targets and support the rise of the whole industry.
Thank you so much, Paul. We have another question here by Mr. Raul Pop, among others, the Vice President of Circular Economic Coalition. Please, Raul.
Thank you, Alex. Paul, very straightforward question. The answer is more difficult. Would you expect the transposition to be made like the regular, old-fashioned way with directives and local legislation, or would you expect to follow the model from packaging with a regulation in place from Brussels, mandatory as it is for all member states?
Right. I mean, the transposition, we're dealing with a directive at the moment, right? So, and then the question was if I was to have a wish, right?
Rather an expectation than a wish. I think we all have the same wish, but is it realistic?
No, because the industry is so different. The producers that are out there are so different. We're dealing with a lot of, I mean, we had it today with ultra-fast fashion companies, luxury brands. And I mean, to get even them in a room and to agree on how they should build their products, and that's kind of a challenge. And I think you know, for me it's like a stairway. We need to take one step at a time, and I think we would completely overwhelm ourselves if we were dealing with too many regulations at this point, where we're already dealing with quite a lot of execution from the textile strategy.
I think my question was rather in the area of, are you familiar with PPWR, the Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulation? Would you think for textile we can have a similar approach?
Yeah, as I said, I'm not at all an expert with packaging, but what happened there? I mean, a lot of times when targets are not met, fines are paid. And what good is eco-modulation if certain actors decide to rather pay a fine rather than to eco-modulate the fees that they're paying? And I think that is something that we should definitely avoid for our sector.
Thank you.
Maybe we should increase the fines.
Don't quote me, please.
Please, Mr. Toma, welcome to our conference.
Salut pe toți participanții, salut organizatorii, faceți un lucru minunat. Ce trebuie să mai spun acum, da? Mulțumesc tuturor. Și îmi pare rău că sunt în aceeași situație, sunt în această situație.
Don't worry, Mr. Mayor. May I ask the question in English? Okay. I assume I can ask the question in English or for Romanian?
Romanian, please.
Romanian will be. Domnul primar, noi am discutat de dimineață despre schemele de IPR, am discutat despre colectarea separată a textilelor în România, am discutat despre probleme, oportunități, challenge-uri, acum suntem la partea de reuse. În afară de, pentru a putea face reuse pe textile, avem nevoie ca în primul rând ele să fie colectate separat, eficient, corect și într-un mod în care atât municipalitățile cât și operatorii de colectare să poată să țină sub control acest fenomen. Pe scurt, ne dorim să deviem complet de la groapă deșeurile textile și să le dăm utilizarea pe care o merită, fie la reutilizare, fie la reciclare, în cel mai rău caz la valorificare energetică. Având în vedere că dumneavoastră la Buzău ați realizat niște lucruri extraordinare, ați făcut multă economie circulară practică, în sensul că aveți o strategie de economie circulară a orașului Buzău și multe lucruri bune legate de economie circulară se întâmplă la Buzău. Am dorit să vă întrebăm cum vedeți dumneavoastră, din punctul de vedere al gospodarului unei localități destul de mari în România, partea asta de colectare separată a textilelor. Cum ar trebui făcută?
Colectarea separată și a textilelor este foarte importantă. Noi din 2023 știm că în 2025 se va întâmpla să fim obligați În 2023 am introdus 4 containere separate pentru colectarea textilelor. Am ajuns la 104 în 2024, astfel încât la sfârșitul anului 2024 am deviat de la groapă aproape 250 de tone de textile prin parteneriatul pe care îl avem cu o firmă privată. Bineînțeles că aceste textile nu sunt suficiente, avem și aici o mulțime de probleme în sensul în care mai vin, eu știu, contaminate cu alte deșeuri. Lumea încă nu este conștientă de ceea ce se întâmplă, dar atenție, s-au deschis la Buzău și vreo 2 magazine de second hand. Bineînțeles că nu scrie pe ele că sunt textile second hand de la Buzău, că nu le mai cumpăra nimeni, dar uite că lumea le cumpără și am ajuns de la Buzău, partenerul privat să facă și export, inclusiv în Bangladesh, în India, chiar și prin Dubai, pentru că sunt o mulțime de oameni și acolo săraci. Mă refer la indienii care sunt prezenți peste tot acolo, la curățenie și în construcție și așa mai departe. Deci avem în vedere în continuare să facem treabă bună. Avem acum, sper că săptămâna viitoare să dau ordinul de începere a lucrărilor pentru CAF, acel centru pentru, cum se traduce?
Centru de aport voluntar.
Aport voluntar, da, unde vom avea atenție și o divizie sau un departament pentru preluarea textilelor de orice fel, pe care să le spălăm, le curățăm, le reabilităm și le vom da și la familiile sărace și din Buzău și din alte zone ale țării. Deci avem multe preocupări, dar problema cea mai importantă este că nu există un reciclator în momentul ăsta în România, nu știu ce există prin Europa și sper ca cel care ne inspiră foarte mult, se numește Constantin Damov, îl salut dacă e pe acolo, pentru că prin ce a făcut prin grupul Green la Buzău ne inspiră foarte mult, practic este cel mai mare reciclator din România, ajută țara extraordinar de mult și sunt convins că inițiativele dumnealui ne vor ajuta și sper să avem tot la Buzău chiar o firmă, o divizie a grupului Green care să sprijine această reciclare a textilelor, pentru că în momentul ăsta ori le duci la groapă, de foc nu le poți da incinerări, nu le poți face pentru că poluiesc foarte mult, dar din textile sunt convins că trebuie să facem ceva. Bineînțeles că și textilele astea sunt combinațiile astea greu de să le separ, pentru că este combinația asta dintre textile și firele astea artificiale poliesterice. Nu mai pun că mai și nasturi, mai și fermoare care nu sunt din aceleași materiale. Deci în momentul ăsta, din câte știu, nu există tehnologie pentru separare, pentru colectare separată, eu știu, rână cu marcă, firă poliesterică, nasturi și așa mai departe. Și trebuie făcut ceva aici, dar sunt convins că până la urmă se vor găsi tehnologii care să ne ajute să reciclăm cât mai mult textile și să nu mai reducem la groapă.
Corect, mă bucură foarte tare faptul că ne-ați menționat că în cazurile de la Buzău se va face sortare și apoi pregătire pentru reutilizare și apoi soluția găsită dumneavoastră este donația. E un lucru foarte bun. Eu v-aș sugera să și monetizați chestia asta. Donația e foarte bună, dar la un moment dat acele produse care rezultă nu mai sunt deșeuri. Dacă se poate face chestia asta, ar fi și asta o variantă. Vă mulțumesc foarte mult pentru intervenția dumneavoastră. Noi acum o să vă ajuta dacă mai puteți să mai rămâneți, pentru că o să avem o prezentare a doamnei Carina Borin. So we have a presentation of Mrs. Carina Borin, which is exactly about sorting for reuse, which is a priority for the circular economy. Please, Carina.
So, nice to see you. First of all, I think it's a big pleasure to be here. It's such an interesting conference. And I think it has came up a lot of different arguments and elements which we can build on. And I think that is the purpose of such a meeting. I think what is most important when we talk about circular economy is actually what we want to achieve. We want to achieve a better planet. Now I don't know if it goes further. Yes. So I will just shortly tell about who is Humana People to People. I will focus on what I see is the main challenge for sorting centers and what is the most important with sorting centers and the sorting, because it's such an important link in making circular economy work. So Humana People to People has actually been collecting clothes since the early 80s. These have been a value for creating projects all over the world. And today we are present in 46 countries. We reach out to 18 million people in different humanitarian projects. 25% of the cost of those projects comes from the second-hand clothes. It was like that. Today, the economy of the second-hand clothes and the collection of second-hand clothes is changing completely. So we collect in Europe almost 140,000 tons, and we sort around 100,000 tons all over. We have 9 sorting centers, and we have more than 700 shops. And there are more than 6,000 people working for Humana People to People in Europe when it comes to second-hand clothes and collection of second-hand clothes. I prefer to say second-hand clothes. It's on purpose. I know legally we are talking about waste. But I think this waste stream is so different because we talk about something which has a value already as it is in many cases. It's the only waste stream where you can have such a big part of it to be reused. And that is why it's important when we talk, perhaps not in this forum because we understand it, but when we talk outside a forum like that, the specialists, that we have to talk about second-hand clothes and not only about waste. I think I will just jump to this one, because I think I like very much what was said by, I don't remember your name, but that the circular economy is a team sport. Because it is, if you have to create a value chain, you have to look at the whole setup. And if you look at the sorting, it is in the middle. If we cut out the sorting, nothing will work. But the sorting is completely dependent on how it's collected and what is after on the market. And I think it was interesting to hear about the collection in Romania. Because if we don't have the overview where the collection is going, honestly I would say poor municipalities. Because they do their best, but if there is not a whole cycle and it's clear what they should do, what they're collecting, it's mission impossible. We just increase the costs. You collect, you put it somewhere, and then you have to pay for it again. So the team sport is where we have to play. And I think all people who are in this room, we are actually part of this game. We are part of a circular economy, and it's when we put our forces together we can make it work. When you are sorting, until today, the sorting was paid thanks to reuse. Because reuse has a value, and everything could be paid by the reuse. The workers in the sorting center, and also to pay for the collection, who also had to pay the people for the work they were doing. With the decrease of quality, and with increase of recycling material into the collection, which is, you can say, a necessity to increase the collection in Europe, the balance has changed completely. Less value in what is collected, more difficult to sort, and if you don't have a market, how can you sort? Today, if you are a sorting center, you can normally reuse 60–65%, it depends a little bit on the collection. You have probably 25–30% should be to recycling. But if the recycling industry is not even able to tell what they want, how can you sort for them? Because the sorting centers, they are doing preparation for reuse, but they also do the preparation for recycling. Today the recycling is outside Europe. It's not here. It doesn't exist almost. I don't know who here know anybody who recycles more than 1,000 tons in a year. Anybody? Just in sorting, for example, in one sorting center we have in Bulgaria, they have allowed about 2–3,000 tons of recycled material per year. So that has to be sent somewhere. And this market doesn't work because there's no economy in the recycling. Because there's no obligation to do the recycling for production of new items. I think this is basically the same thing, but it's more around. It's more that we go together. And I think that is actually the main point. When we are sorting in the sorting center, here you can see some of the photos. It's a very detailed process. There are many experts in sorting in this room. A normal sorting center is producing more or less 150 categories. Most of the work is manual because you need the knowledge from the sorters. To train a good sorter takes more or less 3 to 6 months, depending on the task of the sorter. And you need all the knowledge of the market to be able to sell all these 150 categories. Today there is a big question mark. What is end-of-waste? And we all have read the headlines about export of waste all over the world. We have to look into what actually has been exported and what is actually end-of-waste. We are working on the European level together with ERC and with other entities to find out what should be the definition of end-of-waste. And we should remember 2 things. We want to do it because of environmental issues, so we should reuse as much as possible. One item which is reused can save up to 70 times the impact on the environment compared with a new item. The other thing is we have to base it on economy. That means that end-of-waste has to be connected to the market. This jacket, if it was a spot on it, I don't think it was, but perhaps it was. It is a second-hand jacket. It still has a value, because it's a nice jacket, I think at least. So what can you sell? It means that you have a value. We can't do end-of-waste only based on technicalities. Broken jeans are super fashionable. They have a lot of holes. I'm sure that some entities would classify them as waste because they have holes. So that is one very important part that we have to work on end-of-waste. It has to be harmonized. And if one process defining that this is end-of-waste, it should not be questioned by the next authority, because we can't have interpretations which are nationally different between country to countries. It doesn't work. We also have a quite big impact on the society when we are creating jobs. We are in Europe creating about 150,000 jobs in this sector. We are contributing with somewhere written 7 billion euros to the economy of the EU. That means that it's also a sector which is important. And I think here we have a big opportunity in Romania. The sorting capacity in Romania is not very big. We all know there is a lot of import of good second-hand clothes. We also can imagine that in the future, this has to be harmonization between the different countries. If we look at the EPR model, which is used in France, where you are sorting the clothes, you also get the EPR fee. So I would suggest to the Romanian authorities to push very much for EPR system in Europe, where some of these funds from the other countries, from EPR funds, comes to Romania to create sorting capacity, because it's an opportunity. And it's also a place with a lot of end use of second-hand clothes which could be combined. So I think here I don't say anything new. One of the main issues today with the circular economy is the fast fashion, because the increase of production and the difficulties in reuse and recycling. So I said insufficient capacity for sorting. Also the collection is extremely important that it is professional. When you do collection, you need to know who is the one who is going to take care of what you are collecting. If you just mix collection with whatever, I mean you're a waste company, you do the collection, you take, it's raining today, it doesn't matter, you just collect. Nobody can be able to sort those clothes. You need to know what is the next step and adapt your collection so it fits to the next step. And I'm sorry, those who have collected clothes now in the warehouses of the municipalities, I don't think anybody will be able to sort them, because they have not been collected with the purpose of to be sorted. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully many of the municipalities have been thinking how to do it, but this is the risk. And then, of course, all this transition is also impacting on the economy because uncertainty is the worst thing when you want to develop business. So not clear rules is very, very impacting on what is happening. So again, we have to work together, authorities, private entities, together with the municipalities and so on, because it is a teamwork and it's a common interest to make this circular economy to work. I will add what is not written here. I think we need a business model which is sustainable with its own economy. EPR can just be a support. It can never create the model as such. It has to be a business model which takes in consideration all the different steps in the value chain, involving the producers, the industry, the post-consumer textile industry, authorities, and whatever. And this means also to harmonize in Europe. So, just some figures about second-hand and reuse. Over the last 15 years, the estimation is that an item has a duration of 40% less than 15 years ago. The textile industry is the fourth most polluting industry in the world when it comes to emission of CO2, and it's also a big pressure on water consumption and land consumption. So, if I would have a vision, I think we all should use 50% second-hand and 50% new clothes. Then we will make a balance. So, that is my message. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I would like to get straight to the point with Ms. Michala Fresinano, who I am thanking for being present the entire day here and listening carefully to the presentation and all the speakers before. Because, yes, because we are considering the upcoming EPR schemes, there will be requirements. What is going to be, in your vision, the impact on the textile industry, ability to adopt sustainable reuse practices, and what measures will the government may take to implement this, because there are so many stakeholders involved in this transition.
Okay. Alex, hello everyone. Please allow me to speak in Romania because I'm also speaking in the name of the Romanian Prime Minister's Chancellery, and we have to implement this textile waste EPR scheme or something else, and I really want to be clear and focused on the subject. Cred că, așa cum spunea și domnul primar Toma de la Buzău, și România și-a făcut de ceva timp temele. Și aș vrea să încep prin a spune că suntem, sau mă rog, am fost la acel moment una din puținele țări din Uniunea Europeană care și-a construit o strategie pentru economia circulară a României și are și un plan care conține măsuri și acțiuni necesare pentru a implementa economia circulară a României. Și știm, noi doi cel puțin știm, dar mai sunt și alții în sală, că unul din cele 10 domenii identificate ca fiind prioritare și cu măsuri și acțiuni concrete necesare a fi implementate și pe termen scurt până la jumătatea anului 2026, dar și pe termen mediu până în anul 2030, dar și pe termen lung până în 2035, este domeniul textilelor. Fie că vorbim despre textile noi, fie că vorbim despre deșeuri de textile, avem în acel plan măsuri și acțiuni concrete. Și Ministerul Mediului, împreună cu Ministerul Economiei, responsabile pentru acest domeniu, sunt acum la momentul la care încep să construiască, împreună cu membrii grupului de lucru, schema de EPR necesară. Schema de EPR care se dovedește a fi foarte, foarte complexă. Pentru că această schemă de EPR trebuie, în mod obligatoriu, să ia în considerare și repararea și reutilizarea. Așa cum nu s-au luat în considerare destul de mult timp în celelalte scheme de IPR, repararea și reutilizarea deșeurilor de ambalaje din diverse tipuri de materiale, deșeurilor de echipamente electrice și electronice, vehiculelor scoase din uz și așa mai departe. Aici avem cu adevărat o complexitate foarte mare, care este determinată și de ceea ce v-am spus puțin mai devreme, dar și de faptul că avem foarte, foarte mulți producători. Și trebuie să pornim de la faptul că producătorii aceștia sunt fie producători locali, producători mici, sunt fie producători la nivel internațional, multinaționale, cu piețe de desfacere și în România. Și pentru a putea construi o schemă de IPR, trebuie să cunoaștem cine sunt aceștia și care sunt, eventual, cantitățile de textile pe care ei le pun pe piață, care sunt tipurile de materiale pe care le pun pe piață, pentru că am auzit astăzi, se pune problema ecomodulării. Și cum își construiesc ei produsele pe care le pun pe piață, nu neapărat în sensul de construcție efectivă, dar cum gândesc, cum își construiesc ei produsele astfel încât să le asigure o durată de viață cât mai mare, să le asigure posibilitatea reparării și reutilizării, dar în același timp să le asigure și competitivitatea într-o piață care este mai mult decât impactată de produse foarte ieftine. Și s-a dat aici exemplu a două companii care nu cred că au concurență pe piața europeană la acest moment. Din punctul de vedere al prețurilor, nu al calității. Și atunci trebuie să ne gândim cum combatem toate aceste probleme, pentru că ceea ce se pune pe piață din partea celor două companii invadatoare, cu adevărat invadatoare, nu poate fi nici reparat și nici reutilizat. Care sunt costurile pe care acele companii ar trebui să le plătească în comparație cu costurile schemei de IPR, ecomodulării, costurile pe care ar trebui să le plătească ceilalți producători care nu pun pe piață astfel de produse sau care cresc durata de viață a produselor. M-am gândit aseară, ca orice femeie, mă gândesc înainte de a merge la un eveniment cum să mă îmbrac. Și mă gândeam dacă nu cumva este momentul să vin cu o pereche de blugi care are petice pe ea, că tot s-a vorbit despre găuri și despre petice. Nu neapărat pentru că n-aș avea bani. Credeți-mă, și aceia au fost destul de scumpi, însă mi s-a garantat de către vânzător că este o pereche de blugi reparată, peticită și făcută în așa fel încât să fie actuală, adusă în actualitate și modernă. Tocmai pentru a demonstra că putem încă să reparăm și să reutilizăm atâta timp cât nu am reușit să construim o industrie de reciclare în Europa, care să ne asigure cantitatea de materiale reciclate sau materii prime critice pe care altfel le consumăm din natură sau din alte tipuri de materiale. Ceea ce îmi doresc la acest moment, pentru că, pe lângă faptul că coordonez acest comitet pentru implementarea economiei circulare în România, mai coordonez și comitetul interministerial pentru schimbări climatice, ceea ce îmi doresc sub acest comitet interministerial pentru schimbări climatice este ca în grupul de lucru pentru critical raw materials să introducem în discuție și acest domeniu. Pentru că avem și aici materii prime critice pe care trebuie să le recuperăm. Și dacă reușim să introducem în aceste discuții și aceste tipuri de materiale și de nevoi, cred că va fi mult mai ușor după aceea să asigurăm granturi, stimulente financiare, reduceri de taxe și de impozite, pe care de altfel, între noi fie vorba anul ăsta, nu cred că le vom putea introduce sau nu cred că vom putea deschide subiectul despre așa ceva, dar de anul viitor sunt convinsă că trebuie să facem acest lucru, în așa fel încât să stimulăm repararea, reutilizarea, repunerea în circuitul de valoare al fiecăreia dintre textilele sau deșeurile textile colectate separat, cu intenția de a le prelungi puțin durata de viață, să avem în același timp posibilitatea și timpul necesar să construim o industrie de reciclare absolut necesară.
Mulțumesc frumos, numai de până ne-ați dat. Întrebare scurtă, la obiect punctuală. Cum vom să stimulăm reutilizarea prin subvenție la consumatori sau la producători? Mă rog, cel care pune pe piață de pare.
Competitivitatea cred că este a mediului de afaceri și cred că acolo trebuie stimulată și repararea și reutilizarea și punerea pe piață.
Corect, vă mulțumesc și mă bucur că suntem la sentiment în ceea ce privește competiția neloială care se întâmplă cu anumite tipuri de companii de vânzări online, care au ajuns să strice chiar fragilul echilibru ecologic pe care reușisem să încercăm să-l creștem în acest domeniu. Vă mulțumesc foarte mult. With your permission, I'm going to ask our next speaker, which is a CEO from Amajol. She's a specialist in selling those second-hand items that we love so much. Zoltán, welcome to our conference. How are you preparing in your company to adapt EPR requirements? Do you have some strategies that you have used to ensure compliance or to promote the sustainable use of textiles, second-hand textiles?
Hello. First of all, I'm here in many qualities, an importer, a sorter, collector, a recycler, and a retailer in second-hand business. So, to answer first your question, that yes, we are preparing in our sorting facility that for the EPR scheme to come, and we hope to see regulation soon. We have made the ISO certification, and we made very strict internal regulations about how to resort and what is reusable, what is recyclable, and so on. Also, we obtained the global recycled standard certification, and we hope that all these measures will help us to react very fast when the time comes. In the reuse part and the retail part, I can only say that we try to stay alive until this regulation will help us somehow, because how the whole industry, the reuse part and selling it into second-hand clothes stores, that funded the whole sorting facility and the reselling and recycling part. So we are in kind of a survival mode here. I want to highlight that reuse is our biggest effort now. It's the only thing that's the most circular solution.
We should prioritize.
And as Karina told, it's 70 times it saves 70 times the energy as production of new clothing.
Do you believe that as a second-hand producer, if I may call it like that, you put it on the market, you have enough financial, legal, technical instruments to fight the unfair competition?
At this moment, we cannot find the ultra-fast fashion industry. We all have seen a decrease of our income last year and this year, mostly this year. As I told you, we just expect us and fight to survive until we get some help from our ministries and.
So it should be a European regulation on that, or we can protect ourselves locally.
It should be harmonized unless we are in a very big disadvantage. You saw the examples of refashion and France and Holland. They are giving also Hungary a lot of money to the sorters, and without that money we are out of business in a year or two.
Actually,
we don't have the 3 years.
Let's hope you're not going to end up there. Sorting is the key in this industry right now.
Sorting and reuse and
for reuse, of course, for sorting for reuse.
To put the good value of the product and to monetize it as fast as we can.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask a local producer of textiles, new textiles, but also with a lot of ideas on recycling, reuse. What do you do, Anna, at German shop? How do you manage the requirements? And how do you plan to manage the future EPR requirements? Because you are going to be taxed for what you put on the market. Of course, the consumer is going to pay at the end, but still.
Yes, so thank you very much for inviting me here. I represent the small manufacturers in the country. Our business started 5 years ago, and we produce home deco organic products from mostly linen, so flax, and recycled wool and some hemp. We started with a circular idea in mind from the beginning, and that is why we chose only European linen that is produced in Europe on the entire production cycle, so that we ensure the long-lasting life of the linen products that we put on the market. So we actually promote a 5 to 15 years lifespan of our home deco products. By home deco I mean bedware, curtains, drapes, decorative pillows, bed headings, and carpets. We actually have linen carpets. So we've started with the plant itself that is sustainable, that consumes less water, mainly 7,000 liters less than cotton for 1 kilogram. And what we have introduced afterwards have been two main things. One is a care and repair program that is free for any of our clients. And as a producer, we've actually asked our clients to tell us whenever the products are have a fault, even if it's their own fault, meaning that it's teared by kittens, or I don't know, some examples, but we repair them for free in order to extend the lifespan. But we have also implemented some innovation Norway funds as a green startup, and we took our own recycling equipment so that we do not produce any textile waste from our production. We recycle our own waste, and with the recycled material we fill up decorative pillows and we put them on the market so that we increase the lifespan of the debris that we cause. So in that way we do not have actually any textile waste. So that is what we do in terms of caring and repairing, promoting the long lifespan, and also recycling and reusing as a small producer. Now on your second question, I honestly do not know how to answer, because as it is, we are not competitive in our country. The organic products have an increased, the European one at least, sourcing in Europe, have a 30 to 45% increase in acquisition cost, which leads to a higher cost, higher pricing for the consumer. And we've actually, let's say, subsidized or supported this cost for 3 years until we put some of it in the consumer pricing. So once the certificates come into place, we'll see, depending on how we scale, because we need to scale outside Romania, where the consumption of organic products is more as a mindset,
more embedded in the mindset of the consumers in order to last on the Romanian market and be able to actually educate the consumer here. And I want to have a small mention because we've actually had a client that said that the linen bed sheet, which is supposed to last actually for at least 5 years, but up to 10 years, was torn in two. So what we did, because we had European sourcing, we took the bed sheet back and we went with a textile engineer at the processor of flax, and we managed to identify the crop, and the crop in that year and the ballots have been a problem for all the clients because the plant was weaker in that year. So we actually could give an answer to the client regarding the problem of the plant because it was sourced completely in Europe, but also we completely replaced it because it did not fit what we said, at least 5 years. So I think as a team sport, let's say, even the small producers can make small actions in the circular economy and start with the reuse and repurpose in mind in order to decrease, once they scale, to decrease the waste they are producing on the market, but to educate the consumer.
Thank you. I'm very interested in the traceability part of your source material. It's very good that you can do that at that level of detail.
Exactly.
If you were to have an angel investor to give you 200,000 euros, no condition asked, in what would you invest? In recycling or in repair?
I am too small at the moment to invest in repair. I think that there are fashion brands like Patagonia who invest in repair and actually make a difference. For us, investing in repair would make no sense because we don't have the market to sustain that. So I would say recycle. Yeah, on the line, repurpose it and recycle it with more accuracy and detail.
So we should educate the market in order to ask for repair.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because I know that you're offering the clients the possibility of maintenance, repair for your own products, which is really nice.
Yes.
And I congratulate you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, one operation of your shop. Let's go to our next guest, Tea Ciulacu. Welcome. She's the founder and president of Viitor, one of the well-known associations in the environmental sector in Bucharest and in Romania. Tea, you are doing upcycling in Atelierul de Pânză. We have your products and your colleagues are here. Some of the bags that you received are made from their workshop. How do you see this upcycling part? Is it going to be more than an NGO, a small line of business, or is it going to be bigger if stimulated from, let's say, an EPR scheme or something?
I would say that it needs to be bigger because we cannot rely only on recycling, and we discussed a lot about recycling and reuse. We see the bottlenecks, the limits, but we also know that in the pyramid of importance of waste management, recycling is at the bottom. It's also a very polluting industry with the entire process. So everything that we can do before recycling is much more important. We work, for example, as an NGO with the recycling map into awareness campaigns related to how to not buy more. I know this is not really nice for companies and everything, but
thank you for saying prevention.
We should think if we really need all those quantities from the very well mentioned companies here from across the sea, but even doesn't matter the source, it's really how much material things do we need in our lives. And these kind of questions we do ask within our, let's say, educational activities and awareness campaigns that we do also in Viitor Plus. Going back to the business side and to the production side, we wanted to create an economical model that will show sustainability in practice. Even 15 years ago, when it was no discussion related to textile and EPR and all this complicated stuff. let's say, the element of eco-design that was mentioned before, it was part of our identity since the beginning. And if this mindset would be integrated in many other businesses, even if they are small or big, we'll see so much difference into the market. Because if from the beginning you think how you organize your production system in a way to have zero waste, then we'll have a lot of results and we have less headaches during the way. And we do it as small producers, but it should be a question also for the big producers. What do you do with your waste? Can you find different ways on the way you make your stuff in the way to at least achieve zero waste? We had this question in mind. We had a question in mind of what kind of materials we use when we make our products. And later on, what can we do with the leftovers? Can we create other type, like a sideline of business? We started with the canvas bags, and we wanted to reduce the plastic consumption, the plastic use, single-use plastic. And we came up with the canvas bag, which you didn't find it 15 years ago in any shop, basically. Right now, we are creating bags from different leftovers, and I want to add here the importance of partnerships between small and big companies. Sometimes your raw material is their waste, but when they have the mindset of circularity, then we create great things together. I brought here some examples to make it easier. So this is not a normal canvas bag made from cotton. This is a leftover from a couch cover. And these are our leftovers from the COVID pandemics when we left with the stocks of masks. So if you have this thing in mind, what can I do with my waste before throwing it away, before sending it to the landfill or incineration, you can come up with, I would say, creative solutions and products that can be sold. Again, in our production, we also have leftovers, and we applied to a grant from the Ministry of Economy. So you see when this strategy is paying off for small manufacturers and hopefully right now also for big ones. And we're able to buy an equipment to transform some parts of the material that cannot be used in the production anymore, not for us, not for others. And right now we have this type of, you see, it's like a fluffy stuff that can be used as a filling instead of some other type of plastics that are usually used. So again, it's a matter of mindset of finding solutions, and if we're able to do it as a small manufacturer, with 30 employees and a small turnover, imagine what a big business can do.
Thank you so much, Thea, for presenting us your products. Just a very short question. So public, private partnership, small companies, big companies partnership. What's the point? Are we going to convince the market to adopt this or not? In your opinion? Yes, we are.
We need to do this because it's a team. I will go back to the team playing field. We need education for people to understand what is the environmental impact. You have such a nice tagline. I really like it. Less waste, more future. It's about our future, the future of
What's your opinion on doing public procurement for what you do? Have you ever tried to go into a tender?
It's crucial. We are very happy to see the action plan that was adopted this year. It's in the same direction with, we see, let's say, the benefits on the social side because Atelierul de Căză is also a protected unit. Half of our employees are people with disabilities. And in that direction, we have subsidies from the state in the form of, let's say, fiscal facilities when you buy these products. And like this, we are able to create employment opportunities for people with disabilities in the same way we can do for circular products. So these type of companies need to be supported, and with this green purchase from the public money is the biggest spender, the budget state. Yeah.
It should be the biggest client, right?
It should be. They also organize conferences, for example. They can buy bags when they organize things, and for any type of acquisition, they should look at if that product is supporting social, vulnerable groups, and in this case, ecological
So
products.
basically, you are not only creating green jobs, you are creating very inclusive jobs for people in great need. Thank you very much, Thea, for everything you're doing. Because you mentioned education a lot, I'm going to go to Mihaela Papaz, which is the president of Green Planet Association. Mihaela has a very interesting study that wants to show to us. She has a very small presentation. Mihaela, you have the floor.
You've just told me my presentation was too long.
Yeah.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting us here. As you've told me, my presentation is too long. I will start with the end. This is okay.
Yes.
So I will really start with the end. So we are an NGO. We have different, not this slide, we have different projects, and this year we have started a project regarding textiles. It's called Eco Textile. We have placed 11 containers with the help of the authorities and some schools, because you told that education is very important. We have placed 11 containers and collected about 6 tons of textiles in less than half a year. So the very important thing that after the collection of this textile is that 40%, after we sorted, 40% of the textile was very good for reuse, so second-hand or donations. 25% could be repaired for reuse or upcycling. And if you can see what I'm wearing, this is a shirt collected from these bins, and we have placed some accessories on it just to make it special for this event. 15% were for downcycling or recycling, and 20% for energy recovery. So this is our presence after collection and sorting. Also, regarding this, on this project, we have made 2 questionnaires, one for citizens and one for the products. I think it is very important to know what people think about their waste. Do they know they have textile waste at home? Because some people told us, no, we have no textile waste at home. Are you sure about that? And starting to talk to them, they realized they do have, and they were just throwing it away on the landfill. So the common types of waste mentioned were used clothes, followed by shoes and occasionally mattresses. Most common methods of managing their textile waste, for the ones that really knew they have, they donated to friends or to local companies that take this kind of clothes. They reuse them or they throw them away in the household waste. Many people told us that they need much more infrastructure because they cannot find infrastructure near them so they can throw this textile waste. Sorry. Okay. Also, we have asked them about why they are not using the existing infrastructure. They said there is a lack of information. First of all, they do not know where the collection points are. They do not know what types of textile can be recycled, and I think this is very important to tell people about what can be recycled or not. And some say that they do not have waste to throw away, as I mentioned before. So most of them would recycle used clothes, and some would also include footwear in this. And they would do this monthly or quarterly. What we have seen is that they mostly throw textile waste when the season changes, because probably that's when they clean the wardrobe and put the new clothes for the new season back. So most of them consider that recycling is very important, and some of them say that they are informed about the impact of the textile waste on the environment.
Mihaela, I would like to congratulate you for this study, even if it's not on the scale, that scientific scale and the numbers that we all want. Maybe someone will finance you to do it like we did it. But it's a very, very good start.
Yes.
My question for you is, how would you emphasize the importance of educating the consumers to adopt circular fashion, to implement in their household circular products, or to adopt more sustainable buying strategies?
Most people don't know about the impact of the textiles on the environment or on them also. So if they are informed, I'm sure that they will buy more sustainable products. We have courses from kindergarten to high school, and we talk to them about the importance of selective collection for packaging and textiles now. It's very interesting and funny when I tell the children that some plastic may be in their clothes, and they are just searching really where. And when they find out that there is some plastic, then they realize more the importance of collection, selective collection, and recycling.
So this study can be a base, and I recognize some of my personal research on the subject. Okay, in other countries they have numbers for the study, hopefully we'll have some numbers.
That's a start, yes.
It's a start. And as Mrs. Resinano mentioned, we need to start it from real data collection. We need to know the figures in order to know what we want and what we can do and how fast and how things are going to move forward now. Thank you very much, Mihaela,
Thank you very
for
much.
the presentation. Yes, please.
So actually, I would like to add something very important on this. We made a statistically representative study in Romania in 2022 regarding the throwing of bedware. Okay, and what we found that 80% of the people do not consider that they throw the things, but they take them to the countryside. So the urbanized areas actually take the textiles they have for reusing or for the usage of those in the poorer sectors of our country, where there is no infrastructure of collection, where there is no
We all know what
information.
happens to them.
And we know what happens to them, and the fact is that people are not aware in the urbanized centers of Romania that once you use the textile to a certain extent, it can no longer be recycled. So the understanding of the normal consumer regarding when you can recycle and afterwards where does it land, it's very low right now. So I think we should work on that, on actually understanding the cycle.
Yes. Thank you so much, Juana, for your contribution and input.